It's Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. Ceasefire in Lebanon. The presidential transition hits full speed officially. And a couple of notes on Thanksgiving. Next on the AM Update. Israel has agreed to a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah terrorists that would end nearly 14 months of fighting. Joe Biden, speaking at the White House Rose Garden yesterday, made the announcement.
Under the deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
So Biden made that announcement yesterday at the Rose Garden, saying that Israel has indeed agreed to a permanent ceasefire with Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon. That at least closes for now, one front of this war that Israel has been up against. The Trump transition has hit full speed ahead officially now. There was some kind of in the shadows, some talk recently about how a memorandum of understanding has not yet been reached between the Trump campaign and the Biden administration. Essentially what this is, it documents in writing and allows transition teams, advanced teams to start talking to different departments in the federal government of the Trump campaign. If you want RFK Jr. to start talking to teams at the Department of Health and Human Services, well, you need advanced teams to go in and start kind of setting up camp. That memorandum had not been reached until yesterday when Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, unleashed the following statement, quote, "After completing the selection process of his incoming cabinet, President-elect Trump is entering the next phase of his administration's transition by executing a memorandum of understanding with President Biden's White House. The engagement allows our intended cabinet nominees to begin critical preparations, including the deployment of landing teams to every department and agencies, and complete the orderly transition of power." She went on to say, quote, "The agreement dictates the Trump-Vance transition will utilize private funding, again, providing cost saving to American taxpayers. Donors to the transition will be disclosed to the public. Consistent with transition policy already in place, the transition will not accept foreign donations." So, after actually completing his cabinet selections, Donald Trump has a memorandum of understanding with the Biden administration allowing the Trump transition team to go full speed ahead with the actual transition into power in the federal government. That's obviously good news. You might be asking, I haven't heard any picks for FBI director yet. If I had to guess, he's probably waiting on Chris Wray to either resign or waiting to actually take the oath of office before asking for Wray's resignation. That's just me guessing. I'm not totally sure about that, but you might be wondering why he hasn't picked an FBI director yet. That could be it. And now, if you're sensing a great disturbance in the force, as if thousands of bureaucrats, public health bureaucrats, cried out in fear and terror, it might be because of what happened last night. Last night, Donald Trump officially announced that Stanford's Dr. Jay Bhattacharya will serve as the director of the National Institutes of Health. Trump said in a statement, quote, "His research focuses on the health and well-being of vulnerable populations, emphasizing the role of government programs, biomedical innovation, and economics." Jay is a co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, an alternative to lockdowns proposed in October of 2020. His peer-reviewed research has been published in economics, statistics, legal, medical, public health, and health policy journals. He holds an MD and PhD in economics from Stanford University. Together, Jay and RFK Jr. will restore the NIH to a gold standard of medical research as they examine the underlying causes of and solutions to America's biggest health challenges, including our crisis of chronic illness and disease. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, for those of you, if you remember the early days of COVID, he was in the first maybe five. He would have been number 2 or 3, if I remember correctly. Actual real-life academics, like real accomplished academics at Stanford, after all, who publicly questioned, academically challenged, was a noted skeptic of, and very early on, I'm talking March of 2020, he was one of the first voices with any import whatsoever to question the lockdowns, to question the non-pharmaceutical interventions to try to stop COVID. And he's been a staunch skeptic of the COVID policy, both at the state level and up to the national level. He has been a staunch and consistent skeptic of every single measure, school closures, masking, jabbing to some extent. He's been a skeptic of all of that. That is one of Donald, as bad as Surgeon General seems like it was for Donald Trump, this pick is as good for National Institutes of Health. That was the agencies that Francis Collins, the now we know fake Christian who headed up the Human Genome Project and was just a complete flat earther when it came to COVID. That was his government agency. And now Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, I mean, I don't know how much better this could be. As I said, if you are a public health bureaucrat within the NIH, and that is a massive, massive government agency in terms of grant money, you're probably shaken in fear right now. Fresh off the announcement, Trump intends to tariff both Mexico and Canada 25% on day one in efforts to make sure that they're holding up their end of the bargain at both of those borders. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, says he had a phone call with President Trump.
We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call.
So that is Justin Trudeau. Pierre Poilievre, he's the leader of the Conservative Party. He wants to have Justin Trudeau's job someday. He also reacted to the news that Donald Trump intends to enact tariffs on Canadian imports.
Look, President Trump has the right to put his workers and his nation's security first. I will put Canada's workers and Canada's security first. We need a Prime Minister with the strength and the smarts, the brains and the backbone to stand up for this country, to rebuild our security, our military, and our economy. That is what I will do.
There was a little bit of a bloodletting yesterday amongst the Democrat side of the aisle, particularly when it comes to the Kamala campaign. You may know they're at least $20 million in debt after having raised nearly $1 billion. Now, according to the Huffington Post, senior advisors to Vice President Kamala Harris's failed presidential campaign suggested this week there wasn't really much else Harris could have done to beat Donald Trump. Harris, of course, couldn't have distanced herself from Joe Biden because she was loyal, they said. She couldn't have responded more forcefully to attacks over so-called trans rights because doing so would have been playing Trump's game, and she might not have had much of a chance of winning anyway given the deficit she inherited from Biden. Those same insiders say throughout the course of the campaign, their internal polling never had Kamala Harris in the lead. In addition, Kamala Harris released this video yesterday, essentially saying, "Yeah, sorry, we lost. Please don't give up the fight."
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th.
No, you don't.
And you have the same purpose that you did.
No, you don't.
And you have the same
No, you don't.
ability to engage and inspire.
You literally don't.
So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
You probably should let them take your power from you because you're very self-destructive over there. That is, again, a bloodletting of sorts yesterday on the Democrat side of the aisle. Just quite the revelation if you take it at face value that Kamala Harris never at any point, according to their own internal polling, never actually led Donald Trump. At what point do you just take your hat off, tip your hat, if you will, to certain figures on the left? I'm about at that point with Mr. John Kerry. It's Thanksgiving week, and he's still on the drumbeat of global warming. Here he is speaking at the Harvard Kennedy School and the Institute of Politics.
So I think, personally, we're on the brink of needing to declare a climate emergency, which is what we really have. And we need to get people to behave as if this really is a major transitional challenge to the whole planet.
We need to get people to behave. I love it when they say the quiet part out loud. I love that. That's not a, well, that is a Freudian slip. But I love it when they just say, no. We are the taskmasters. You are the peons. Get in line, behave, or else. We're going to declare a climate emergency. Thank you, John Kerry. At some point, it doesn't matter what time of the year it was, whether it's this guy has been a figure in politics, or at least political circles, my entire life, going back to when I was a kid. And he's consistently awful. And at some point, you just have to tip the cap. Walmart is making a slate of changes to its so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, becoming the latest in a growing list of major corporations to halt the so-called woke initiatives. Anti-woke activist and filmmaker Robbie Starbuck, who's been leading a campaign exposing major corporations' woke policies, said on X this week he warned Walmart executives last week he would be doing a story on wokeness at the retail giant. Instead, Starbuck said, they had a productive conversation to find solutions. Starbuck outlined the changes Walmart agreed to make, including working to remove sexual and so-called transgender products inappropriately marketed towards children and reviewing grants to Pride events to avoid funding sexualized content targeting kids. Walmart clarified, of course, these changes had been in the works for a few years and were not a result of the conversation with Starbuck. Walmart confirmed other media its plans to change how it monitors products within its marketplace and reviews the funding of grants. The company also confirmed it'll review those grants, especially for community events, to ensure they promote an appropriate environment for children. The company also decided not to extend the so-called Racial Equity Center it launched in 2020 as a 5-year initiative, and will ditch the terms Latinx. I'm still not sure how to say that. Is it Latinx or Latinx? It says it's going to ditch that term along with DEI altogether in official company communiques. Altogether, that's a positive story. Walmart giving an inch here a little bit. It's kind of a tepid walk back, kind of a backing into the bushes a la Homer Simpson thing when it comes to DEI. But still, it's showing that those policies are no longer as in vogue as they once were. That DEI cartel still has to be completely broken, and it has to be broken decisively. Hopefully soon. Now, please keep saying this. Here's actress Sharon Stone saying Americans are so dumb and stupid, and that's why Donald Trump won.
Italy has seen fascism. Italy has seen these things. You guys, you understand what happens. You have seen this before. My country is in its adolescence. Adolescence is very arrogant. Adolescence thinks it knows everything. Adolescence is naive and ignorant and arrogant. And we are in our ignorant, arrogant adolescence.
We don't travel enough here in America. All of us in flyover country. We haven't been to other countries to see just how advanced and, shall we say, demure they are. Now, we're so dumb and stupid and arrogant and ignorant, Sharon Stone says. The actress, who, of course, is a very relatable figure, of course. We're so dumb and arrogant, we've never traveled, and that's why we voted for Donald Trump. I hope they keep up with this message. Best of luck to them. And now here's this. This is Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s running mate during his independent bid for president, outlining in about 2 minutes what exactly she means, or the campaign meant, by Make America Healthy Again.
Many of the pharmaceutical companies and their top investors have had emergency meetings over the last week. And I've been hearing rumors about it. And, we get our calls as well. And people are like, is this really happening? Is this actually happening? Can you give us some insight as to what Bobby's going to do? And I was like, look, it's not about Pfizer being or pharmaceutical companies being bad, right? They've done some very bad things, but the idea of them in and of itself is actually quite positive. Do the research, come up with interesting treatments and drugs, and just be honest. And if the vaccine works, that's wonderful. If there are injuries, let's understand and screen those populations in advance and come up with different schedules. Mumps, measles, rubella, it's 3 and 1. If you talk to some of the doctors, when they vaccinate their kids, they actually seek out each of these vaccines separately. Measles vaccine separate from the mumps and rubella, and they'll give their children that single shot, on a slightly different timeline. We have so many things we can do to save this industry and to save these companies. It's not necessarily we want Pfizer to disappear overnight. And we don't want the stock to tank. In fact, we'd love for it to be a successful stock that is directly tied with health outcomes. I mean, if that was the case, we wouldn't have a problem here, but that's not the case. That the increase in their stock price over the last 10 years has been directly tied to many injuries that have been swept under the rug, as that has been the case with Merck. And so the correction we're seeing right now is the right one. That they made a mistake. The company has failed in its duty to deliver a safe and effective product, and it's time for them to readjust.
So that is Nicole Shanahan, former running mate for RFK Jr.'s independent presidential campaign, outlining in about 2 minutes the pharmaceutical side of Make America Healthy Again. I think that's a very charitable outlook towards the pharmaceutical companies. And I think on some level, she's probably right. You do want to have companies that are doing actual real research, actual real science, because at its best, medicine is a gift from God to help people with chronic illnesses. Hopefully not chronic illnesses, but illnesses of various stripes that maybe they don't have much of control over. You want that to exist. But what exists right now is kind of a racket. And what exists right now is not real research. What exists now is this angry feedback loop of very chronically unhealthy people going to very greedy companies looking for a panacea that will help them to treat their illnesses, which could actually be treated with a different lifestyle. And I think that's maybe kind of what she's starting to get at there. I don't know. I kind of appreciated that. Again, it's a very charitable outlook towards particularly Pfizer, but at the same time, you're never going to fully get rid of companies like that, nor should they necessarily go away. Their priorities just need to shift. I hope Make America Healthy Again, the MAHA Alliance, is able to make that culture change, not only in the government, but in the private sector as well. And finally, a couple of notes about Thanksgiving. First, I want to share with you how I'm doing my turkey, because everybody was asking. It comes as no surprise I'm smoking my turkey this year. I was asked to do so. We're getting together with my parents, and there's going to be a few extra people there as well. So I got a rather large turkey. It's about 15 and a half pounds. I'm going to smoke it. Now, I was going to do low and slow, but I got a little iffy because it's big enough. That 40 to 140 degree range, man, I don't want to do that at 225 degrees because that's the danger zone where you have to get that done. You have to go from 40 degrees to 140 degrees within 4 hours. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook it at 325 to 350. I think I'll probably do 350 and just get up really early in the morning to start that. I'm going to do a brine, and here's where I messed up. I accidentally bought a turkey that was pre-brined. So instead, I did that show Pioneer Woman on the Food Network? I found one of her recipes for a brine. And so I'm doing that, but it's going to end up being more of a marinade than a brine. And that recipe, you can find it on Pioneer Woman's website. It has, orange peels in it. It's got rosemary leaves in it. It's got bay leaves. Huge fan of bay leaves over here. And so I took out basically all of the salt from that brine recipe just because it was already pre-brined. And so last night I put the turkey into that brine, and I'm letting it sit for 24 hours. So I'm going to get up early. And put that thing on the smoker for about 4 hours before we have to leave. So that's how I'm doing my turkey. And I hope it turns out okay, because there's multiple schools of thought with turkey. Some say frying a turkey is the best. It's been a long time since I've had a fried turkey. Some say just do it the old-fashioned way, just roast it in the oven. That's good, And then there's some that say, smoking it is the best. And then there's a not insignificant chorus of people who say that all turkey is bad and just do something else. All turkey tastes like cardboard. Do something else. I don't know. Not all turkey is bad. When you go to the fair and you get a turkey leg, that is always good. It's always flavorful. It is like the ideal meat delivery system. Just like a pound of meat in one succinct section that's just juicy and full of flavor. So not all turkey is bad. I'm hoping that this turkey turns out sort of like the turkey that you can get at state fairs or at Universal, the turkey leg. I'm hoping that's the case. Whatever the case is, hope it's not dry. Hope I don't make everybody sick. And finally, a new segment I'm calling Grok Schlock. I asked the AI chat box on Twitter in fun mode to provide me a typical Thanksgiving day in a typical American household. And here's what Grok said. This is Grok Schlock. Thanksgiving in America, a day when the nation collectively pretends it's 1621 all over again, but with better dental hygiene and worse political discourse. Here's how it typically unfolds. The morning ritual, the Great Parade Watch. The day begins with families gathered around the TV, not to discuss the historical inaccuracies of the holiday, but to watch giant balloons of cartoon characters and celebrities float down the streets of New York, because nothing says Thanksgiving like a 50-foot SpongeBob SquarePants. The shopping ambush. Before the turkey's even thawed, some Americans are already in line for Black Friday deals, mistaking consumerism for gratitude. Thanksgiving becomes Thanksgetting as the plot of their strategy to snag a not really discounted flat screen TV. The cooking showdown in the kitchen. A battle royale ensues. Mom or dad, or both, don their cape of culinary courage to tackle the turkey. The bird, once an innocent creature, now becomes the center of an epic saga of overcooking or undercooking. Side dishes multiply like gremlins after midnight, each family member claiming their dish is traditional. The family gathering, a diplomatic mission. Relatives arrive, each equipped with opinions on politics, sports, and the correct way to make stuffing. Conversations are a minefield where one wrong step could lead to a declaration of familial war. Uncle Bob, known for his controversial views, is both avoided and the star of the show. The feast, a test of endurance. The meal is served, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. Plates are piled high with food in quantities that would make even a black hole consider its appetite. Everyone eats until they're in a food coma, then eats some more, because seconds are practically a constitutional right. The football distraction. Post-feast, the living room transforms into a sacred viewing area for football. Here, arguments shift from politics to referee calls, providing a temporary ceasefire in the family drama. The game's outcome is less important than the collective nap it induces. The aftermath, leftovers and regrets. As the day winds down, leftovers are packed away, destined for sandwiches that will make the next week's lunches the highlight of office life. Regrets about that extra slice of pie are starting to set in, but not enough to stop anyone from having it again. The true spirit of Thanksgiving. Amidst the chaos, there's a moment, brief but real, where everyone pauses to give thanks. It might be for the food, the company, or just the fact that the house didn't burn down during the cooking. This fleeting moment of gratitude is the real turkey, hidden beneath layers of satire and stuffing. In conclusion, American Thanksgiving is a day where we celebrate by eating our way through history, arguing over trivialities, and then collapsing into a carb-induced stupor, all while vaguely remembering something about pilgrims and peace. It's uniquely American, and in its own bizarre way, utterly beautiful. That is Grok Schlock Thanksgiving edition. That'll do it. Please remember the real reason for the season, not whatever Grok just spit out there. And a happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.